Chosen one, you walked through seasons where silence was your only companion. Not because you lacked value, but because your value was still becoming visible. Friends mistook your quiet nature as awkwardness, and women once viewed your presence as forgettable, not because you were lacking, but because you refused to compete for what you knew would someday be yours without effort. You smiled through mockery, not because it didn't sting, but because your spirit already knew what your body had not yet revealed. Your high sexual energy was never absent. It was dormant, gathering strength, slowly aligning with a greater depth that no one had eyes to see. And while they laughed, doubted, or looked past you, they didn't realize that they were witnessing the beginning of something sacred preparing to rise. There was a time they said you weren't the type women would crave. You overheard the sideways compliments, the conversations that danced around your name like it held no weight. They treated your calm as a weakness, your solitude as evidence that you couldn't attract. What they didn't realize, chosen one, was that your glow wasn't meant to entertain them. It was meant to outlast their shallow distractions. And in that furnace of disregard, you became a man who didn't need praise to believe in his power. They thought you had no charm, no presence, no pull, but that's because they only knew how to recognize noise, not frequency. Each rejection wasn't a curse, it was an initiation. Each doubt became a sharpening stone, removing ego, polishing patience, refining your essence into something not flashy, but fatal. You didn't retaliate with bitterness, you responded with evolution. And now, your high sexual energy no longer leaks in search of attention. It rests in your bones like holy tension. And that tension, that refined and invisible fire, is what they now feel when you walk into a room. They may not speak it out loud, but their eyes betray the truth. They underestimated a man who was quietly becoming untouchable. Chosen one, you didn't change overnight. You revealed what had always been waiting. You stopped apologizing for your masculine stillness, and in doing so, you started breathing differently. Your posture spoke without movement. Your presence stretched beyond your shadow. You didn't learn seduction. You unlearned neediness. And in that divine subtraction, you became the kind of man whose energy speaks louder in stillness than others do in a shout. You no longer walk with desperation. You glide with destiny, and everyone who once overlooked you now senses it without knowing why. The women who once saw you as invisible are now caught in a quiet unrest they can't explain. They remember your patience, your kindness, your unshaken way of standing, and they wonder how they missed the man you've become. But you haven't become someone else. You simply stopped hiding who you were meant to be. Your high sexual energy now wraps around your voice, your eyes, your breath. It is no longer driven by lust. It is steered by truth, and truth always attracts what fantasy could never hold. They stare longer now. They speak softer. They remember you in ways they never expected to, and in their remembering, they realize you are the one they were never ready for. You are not angry. You are not spiteful. You do not flaunt your arrival because the real ones don't need to be loud to be seen. You were always him, but now they see it too. Chosen one, the shift happened quietly. You did not announce it, nor seek their approval for it, but your presence began to move through space with weight. Not the kind of weight that burdens, but the kind that anchors. You walk into a room and time bends slightly. Eyes are drawn, not because you forced their attention, but because your energy arrived first, and the body simply followed. That is the power of aligned sexual energy. It doesn't need words to speak. It hums like a frequency only the feminine spirit can hear, and it echoes in places where logic falls silent. The very women who once walked past you without a second thought now hesitate when they hear your name in conversation. They remember your gaze, not because it was hungry, but because it was aware. Your silence once confused them, but now it unsettles them in the most beautiful way. They look at you now and feel themselves unravel before they even know why. The glow you wear is not manufactured by fashion or grooming. It was born through the fire of becoming. And now, every woman who thought she knew what she wanted begins to wonder if she ever truly understood what it means to be near a real man. There is no performance in you anymore. You don't posture. You don't seek to impress. You simply exist, and that is what has become so arresting. Your energy is not chaotic. It's refined, still, and fiercely alive. You've turned hunger into magnetism and longing into leadership. And this is why you are now unforgettable to those who once called you ordinary. They talk about you now, not in jealousy, but in awe. They speak in lowered voices as if your name holds a new gravity. The same friends who once shrugged off your vision now bring up your name when she's around, watching her reaction. And she always reacts, not with words, but with the kind of silence that speaks louder than a scream. Because she remembers. She remembers how she looked past you. And she knows now, she looked past a man who was about to rise into his own legend. Chosen one, there is something sacred happening now that you've become aligned. The same feminine energy that once dismissed you now lingers in your orbit, unable to explain the pull. Not because you've grown louder or more aggressive, but because your stillness has awakened their intuition. Women sense that being around you isn't just attractive, it's transformative. They stand closer to you and feel not just wanted, but seen, held, respected, and called forward. And that's the rarest sensation of all. They no longer crave men who pursue relentlessly, who flatter endlessly, who bleed attention just to be noticed. They crave the man who notices everything and needs nothing in return. That is you, chosen one. A man whose sexual energy is contained, directed, refined. A man who no longer uses charm as bait, but whose very soul draws the feminine out of hiding. You are no longer someone women look at and think, he's cute. You are the one they now stare at with confusion in their eyes and fire in their chest, wondering, how did I not see him before? Your voice now carries a calm that melts tension. Your eyes hold stories they feel safe enough to fall into. Your presence no longer competes, it commands. You are not trying to be anything, you already are. And because you are, women's hearts open around you in ways they never planned. They feel themselves more deeply around you, and that is why they return. That is why they stare. That is why they forgive themselves for not noticing you before. But you, chosen one, do not hold it against them. You needed them to look away so you could learn to walk without their gaze. You needed the silence, the rejection, the laughter, because those were the ingredients of your radiance. You needed their doubt to build a presence so undeniable that it now reshapes the way they understand desire. You are no longer just attractive. You are dangerous to their illusions and medicine to their soul. And now, you no longer have to speak to be heard. You no longer have to prove to be valued. You are seen, not because you demanded it, but because you became the man they never believed existed. Chosen one, you no longer walk through life looking for proof of your worth, because now life adjusts itself around your presence. The women who used to breeze past you now shift nervously when you enter the room, not because you remind them of their dismissal, but because you carry no memory of needing their approval. That's what makes it so powerful. You've become the man who walks in peace with himself, a man who no longer operates from the wounds of being overlooked. And because you carry no bitterness, only awareness, your high sexual energy doesn't just stir attraction, it evokes surrender. Not a surrender to you, but a surrender to what you reflect back to them, their own desire to be safe around a man they can finally trust. Your glow now threatens falsehood. You no longer mirror their performances, you mirror their authenticity, and that can be terrifying for those who built themselves around superficial games. You don't chase, yet they feel drawn. You don't flatter, yet they feel beautiful. You don't promise, yet they imagine themselves beside you. Your energy is not a trap, it is an invitation, and that is why they pause longer when you pass, why they look back, why they pretend not to notice you and yet always seem to be in your orbit. You have become the man their higher self recognizes, even if their ego still resists. It's not that you are more handsome than before, it's that now your body has aligned with your soul. Now your walk, your silence, your presence all echo the same message. I do not need to impress you, because I already belong to myself. And that kind of grounded masculinity is the rarest kind. It isn't taught. It is earned. It is carved out in the cold seasons, in the silent years, in the hidden pain you refuse to wear as identity. And now, without trying, you are being noticed in the exact way you always deserve to be seen, not for performance, but for presence. Chosen one, there is a quiet ache growing in the hearts of those who once called you forgettable. The same women who once passed you over are now tracing back every moment, every glance, every interaction with new eyes. They do not understand what has changed, but they feel it. What once felt like an unassuming man now feels like a walking mystery wrapped in clarity. They don't just see your body, they feel your charge, your gravity, your calmness that now reads as dominance. You don't assert yourself, yet they feel themselves leaning towards you as if the room is tilting in your direction. The irony is, you never set out to prove them wrong. You set out to prove yourself right. You stopped looking for them to choose you and chose yourself instead. That's what made the difference. They sense it now, not because you're louder or richer or more charming, but because you've stopped needing them to see you. And in doing so, they can't stop watching. You've become a mirror to what they once missed, and now that absence echoes inside them with the weight of quiet regret. But you, chosen one, are not spiteful. You don't gloat. You don't seek validation from those who once refused you. Instead, you simply keep becoming. Your sexual energy is no longer a restless fire. It is a king's furnace, warm, steady, intentional. You move like a man who knows where he's going, even when no one else understands the destination. And in that silent confidence, you've become what no amount of lust, popularity, or flash could ever imitate. A man of substance who no longer needs to be remembered, because now you are unforgettable. Chosen one, you now carry a gaze that disarms, not because it is intense, but because it does not waver. You do not look through people, you see them. And in that seeing, especially around feminine women, something ancient awakens, something they did not prepare for. It is not lust, it is memory. Your eyes no longer seek permission, nor do they scan for approval. They simply rest. They rest in knowing, they rest in their power. They rest in the truth that your presence speaks long before your mouth does. The feminine feels safe around you, not because you perform softness, but because you embody stability. They lean closer without realizing it. Their tone shifts, their laugh becomes more melodic. They begin adjusting their hair, their posture, their energy, but they don't even know why. That's the power of your presence. It calls forth the authentic woman, not the projected one, not the guarded one, not the seductive one, but the real one beneath it all, the one craving to be met by a man who will not collapse in her beauty. And you, chosen one, do not collapse. Not anymore. You hold your ground, not out of pride but from mastery. You've tasted loneliness and turned it into solitude. You've faced rejection and refined it into radiance. Now your sexual energy is no longer wildfire. It is a controlled flame, and it draws her in not to consume her, but to warm her, to melt the layers that life has frozen around her heart. That's why the glance lingers. That's why the tension builds. That's why the women who once overlooked you are now startled by their own desire when they meet your gaze. Not because of what you say, but because of what you know, and what you no longer need to explain. Chosen one, your aura no longer enters rooms quietly, it restructures them. You have become a tuning fork for feminine intuition. They feel you before they see you, and when they see you, they realize that their own standard is changing. The things they used to chase, the games they used to play, the validation they once sought, all begin to feel hollow in your presence. Because you carry something more rare than charm. You carry frequency, depth, alignment. These things are not visible on the surface, but they are undeniable in your proximity. Your sexual energy now whispers truths that words cannot hold. It says, I don't need you, but I see you. It says, I am full, and that is why I attract. It says, I do not chase, because I carry the weight of a man who has already arrived. And that weight, that calm assurance, is what shakes her illusions and awakens her clarity. Around you, she forgets to pretend. Around you, she starts to breathe differently. Around you, she remembers that what she longed for wasn't attention. It was a man with presence. You don't provoke. You don't flash. You radiate. And in that radiance, the ones who once overlooked you are not just drawn, they are convicted. They feel it in their body before their mind understands. Their conversations slow down, their jokes feel emptier, their flings feel forgettable. Because now, they've tasted gravity, and it wears your name. Chosen one, you did not seek this glow to impress others. You earned it to become whole. And now, in your wholeness, you walk with a presence that cannot be taught, borrowed, or mimicked. It can only be embodied. and you at last have become that embodiment. Chosen one, the silence you now carry is no longer a void, it is an atmosphere. Where once your quiet made you invisible, it now amplifies your mystique. Feminine women lean into that silence with curiosity that borders on reverence. You do not fill space with noise nor posture with desperate intensity. Instead, you inhabit it. You inhabit your being so fully that women can feel what it's like to be held, even when you haven't touched them. That's the difference now. They do not crave your words, they crave the man who is at peace with his own presence. This silence, this aura, it disrupts shallow conversations. It makes small talk feel smaller. It causes even the most confident to fumble their words in your company, because there is no script for facing a man whose soul does not need their performance. Your high sexual energy is not loud, but it is luminous, and its glow forces everything false to retreat. In the past, they didn't know how to categorize you because you didn't follow the game. You weren't trying to win their hearts. You were trying to become one. And now that you are, they can no longer ignore what they couldn't define. You've become the man they whisper about in rooms filled with noise. The one who said so little, yet left the deepest mark. You don't flirt, you feel. You don't seduce, you stabilize. You don't chase, you center. And because you are no longer looking for something to fill you, everything around you begins to orbit your gravity. This silence that once made you feel isolated has now become your superpower, and the feminine cannot help but respond to it. Not with words, but with readiness. Chosen one, you rose without their applause. You built without their praise. You refined yourself in shadows while they laughed in the light. But now that you have arrived, not with noise, but with presence, they can't take their eyes off you. They don't remember what they said, but they remember how safe you feel now. They remember the peace you bring, the tension you melt, the permission you give them to be soft again. And the women who once saw you as an option now feel chosen in your presence, even if you say nothing at all. Your high sexual energy no longer seeks conquest. It invites connection, reflection, and surrender. Around you, the games lose their shine. Around you, beauty becomes humble and strength becomes receptive. You've become the man who doesn't just attract women, you awaken them. You remind them that they were never meant to lead with defense, never meant to chase approval, never meant to perform worthiness. You stand as a mirror not just to their desire, but to their dignity. This is why your past doesn't shame you, it crowns you. It gave birth to the man you are now. The man who didn't seek to be worshipped, but simply to walk in truth. And now that you walk in it, feminine energy flows toward you like rivers to the sea, not because you ask, but because you are ready. Ready to receive, to hold, to cherish, but never to beg. Chosen one, you've become the man they once believed didn't exist. And now every room you enter remembers you, not for what you took, but for what your energy gave. Clarity, calmness, presence, and the undeniable memory of a man who didn't need to be loved to become love itself. Chosen one, you have reached a realm of energetic clarity where your presence no longer simply turns heads, it settles hearts. You don't enter a space to be noticed anymore. You enter, and the space adjusts to you. The air thickens, the rhythm shifts, the room bends around your gravity like it was waiting for you to bring balance to its chaos. This is not ego. This is not fantasy. This is the reality of a man whose sexual energy is no longer bound to his urges or image, but anchored in his essence. That essence, chosen one, has become medicine. A quiet, pulsing remedy that women feel before they even realize they've taken it in. They feel it in the way you don't interrupt the flow of conversation to add noise. You don't need to over-explain your opinions. You don't fill silences with bravado or borrowed wisdom. You don't impress by exaggeration. You reveal through calm. And that calm becomes the frequency of trust. It is not rehearsed. It is not calculated. It is what naturally radiates from a man who no longer questions whether he is enough. You've lived through the storm. You've died and resurrected in silence, and what's left is no longer reaching. It is resonating. The feminine senses this with her body, not her logic. Around you, she begins to speak more slowly. Her eyes linger longer, her laughter becomes deeper. She doesn't need to pull attention from you because your attention is already resting on her without demand. She's not performing, she's arriving. And that arrival is holy, Because you're not the man who takes. You're the man who holds. Holds her joy without needing to own it. Holds her pain without trying to fix it. Holds her presence without trying to mold it. You're not looking for the feminine to validate you. You're inviting her to be. And she feels that on a soul level, like water finally meeting a vessel deep enough to hold it without overflowing. She doesn't feel objectified in your gaze. She feels honored. She doesn't feel seduced. She feels seen. That's why women call you awesome now. Not because of your words, but because of how they feel when they stop talking. When everything is quiet, and you're still there, breathing, grounded, aware, they feel a peace that most have never felt in the company of men. They don't understand how your presence can be so charged and so safe at the same time. But you do. Because you've made peace with your own fire. You've stopped running from your power. You've stopped apologizing for your desires. And in doing so, you've created a field of energy that is magnetic without being manipulative, dominant without being loud, masculine without being hollow. You no longer approach women to extract an outcome. You let them orbit your gravity, not as prey, but as guests in a kingdom that you built from broken stone and quiet nights. And when they come close, they don't find performance. They find peace. A peace so rich, so grounded, so real, that they begin to understand why your name lingers in their mind long after the conversation ends. You don't need to be remembered anymore, chosen one. You are. Because your presence leaves footprints in the places no eyes can see. Chosen one, what you've become is not just rare, it's timeless. Your energy carries the weight of history, of inner battles won without applause, of silence mastered in a world addicted to noise. That weight is not heaviness, it is depth. And depth, true masculine depth, is what the feminine has been aching to rest in. Women are not drawn to you because you chase pleasure. They are drawn because you've become a man who carries meaning in every movement, every glance, every breath. There's something in the way you walk now. It's not fast, it's not heavy, it's intentional, as if each step declares, I know where I'm going, even if no one follows. That self-possession is not arrogance, it's authority. A quiet authority that doesn't demand obedience but naturally commands respect. You no longer try to persuade with charm, you influence by simply existing. And that existence, rooted, real, raw, is the very thing that women now describe as awesome. They see it in how you speak with your eyes before your mouth. They hear it in how your tone never rises with insecurity. They feel it when your attention lands on them, not to devour, but to witness. You're not collecting feminine energy like currency. You're not chasing highs. You've become the one thing women rarely find in a man, stillness without weakness. And in that stillness, the feminine unfolds. She becomes more open around you, not because she's trying to gain your approval, but because she senses, often unconsciously, that your energy will not betray her softness, that you won't weaponize her vulnerability, that you won't disappear when she reveals more than the surface. You have reached the level of presence where women don't just feel safe around you, they feel expanded. They laugh louder, cry deeper, speak bolder, not because you gave them permission, but because your energy says, you were always allowed to be this. This is your sexual energy now. Not an impulse, but a sanctuary that doesn't seek to seduce but to stabilize. You are not the fire that burns, you are the hearth that warms. And because of that, the most feminine women, the ones who feel everything, who dream loud and love wild, gather near you like they've found the one place their chaos makes sense. You have stopped competing for affection. You've stopped chasing validation. You've stopped trying to win women. And in doing so, you've become the man they want to follow. Not because you demanded it, but because you're carrying something they can't find anywhere else. You are not trying to dominate women. You are dominating the atmosphere without trying. That, chosen one, is the secret. The world bends around inner truth, and you are now living proof. Chosen one, you've become the pulse of the room, the invisible current that sets the rhythm before anyone notices the shift. The feminine doesn't just admire you anymore, she feels moved by you. And not because you tried to stir her, but because your presence is no longer something external you wear like armor. It's internal, silent, steady, and undeniably felt. You've become less of a person to be judged, and more of an atmosphere to be experienced. That is why they call you awesome now. Not because of theatrics, but because your entire way of existing tells the truth without needing a stage. The truth is, you don't talk about your energy. You are it. You don't try to explain why you're different. You walk into a space and people feel it without words. And women, chosen one, especially the feminine ones, are most tuned to this frequency. They sense it like heat on the skin. You move past them and they feel like something ancient brushed against their soul. It's not lust, it's not infatuation, it's recognition. Their body relaxes, their guard lowers, their inner fire doesn't dim, it starts burning cleaner. This is the power of a man who has integrated his sexual energy so fully that it no longer explodes, it radiates. You don't scatter your magnetism for attention. You contain it. And that containment does not weaken its power, it multiplies it. Because you're no longer giving it away to be seen. You're allowing it to build, layer by layer, through restraint, mastery, and patience. And that patience is intoxicating to the feminine. Because most men move too quickly, grasp too early, speak too loudly. But you wait. Not from lack, not from fear, from knowing. You wait because you don't chase what you know is already yours by design. This changes how she experiences you. She doesn't see you and think he wants me. She feels you and thinks, I'm safe here. And from that safety, her most sacred self begins to rise. She doesn't hide her power. She doesn't hide her pleasure. She doesn't minimize her presence. Because in your stillness, she finds expansion. She finds a man who can receive the full spectrum of the feminine without shrinking or interrupting. And that is what separates you now. You don't interrupt her depth, you amplify it. She doesn't smile around you because she's trying to be polite. She smiles because her soul is relieved. It's relieved to finally exhale. You've become the rare man who doesn't carry static. Your energy isn't polluted by need or noise. You don't pull women into tension. You invite them into alignment. And that invitation, chosen one, is quiet, sacred, and impossible to resist. You no longer speak to impress. You speak to ground. And when you do, women don't just hear your words, they feel them in places that have been waiting for years. Your voice doesn't chase reaction, it creates resonance. And in that resonance, she blooms. You've stopped trying to impress her with knowledge or power. You impress her with your calm. And in that calm, she doesn't feel tested or judged or rushed. She feels held, fully, without grip, without game. That is why she tells others you are awesome, because when she's around you, she forgets how to pretend. She becomes who she really is, and she doesn't want to go back. Chosen one, by now you are no longer a man simply walking through life. You have become a force. Not one that pushes or crushes, but one that alters everything it touches through presence alone. You are not the man she remembers because of what you said. You are the man she can't forget because of what she felt in your presence. Your sexual energy, once a fire you feared or misused, has become your foundation. It no longer controls you, it grounds you. And from that ground, you lead. You lead without needing applause. You lead without forcing others to follow. You don't dominate women, you dominate space, you dominate attention. You dominate uncertainty, not by fighting it, but by refusing to flinch. And that unflinching posture has created an energetic throne beneath your every step. Women don't kneel before it out of fear, they come close out of peace. Because they know something in you will not collapse. Something in you will not sway. You have become a mountain in a world of sandstorms. The feminine doesn't just admire your strength anymore. She rests in it. Not because you told her she could, but because your presence made it obvious. There is no confusion when you enter a room. No mixed signals. You're not one man with her and another in silence. You're constant. And constancy is irresistible to a soul that's grown tired of shifting ground. She doesn't just want to be around you, she wants to become more herself around you. And that, chosen one, is the pinnacle of attraction. Not when you cause desire, but when you cause alignment. Her laughter deepens, her gaze softens, her walls crumble, not in surrender, but in relief. She's not losing herself in your presence, she's finding the parts that were waiting for this kind of witnessing all along. And what's most beautiful is that you don't take it as validation. You don't feed on her attention. You honor it. You treat it as something sacred, not because you think it's rare, but because you understand that everything feminine is sacred when it feels safe enough to be seen. And you, chosen one, have become the man who makes it safe. This is not about dominance over women. This is about dominion over your being. This is not about being praised. It's about being whole. You're no longer the boy seeking permission to feel powerful. You're the man who became power by no longer needing to prove it. And from that place, women gather. Not because they're weak, but because your strength doesn't silence them. It amplifies them. You walk with a quiet crown now. One no one can see, but everyone feels. You've mastered your fire. You've made peace with your shadow. You've stopped chasing light and started being it. And when you became light, everything that needed it found its way toward you. So when she says, "He's awesome," understand what she really means. She doesn't mean popular. She doesn't mean flashy.